Absolute Wonder Woman saved Gateway City from the Tetraide, but was pulled down into Hades, before then being trapped within the maze. Diana finds herself in the throne room of Hades, Lord of the Underworld. Diana does not hesitate to kneel before the Lord of the Dead. "Princess, let's see that pretty face," Hades orders from his throne. His body is a swirling wisp of god particles, on whose head hovers a red crown. Diana does not protest and removes her war helm. "Lovely. Princess, you cannot leave the underworld," he tells her. Diana smiles and raises her head slightly, staring at the fearsome god. "Except I did," she says softly. Hades' eyes smolder for a moment as he glares at her. "Yes, you did, and we'll be getting to how you did that in short order. But first, disarm yourself, princess," he orders. Diana motions to her armor, pointing out that she has no weapons. But Hades is no fool. He knows that as a true witch, nearly everything she is wearing is a weapon. The princess sighs and begins to unclip her armor and drop it to the floor with a clatter. "I am surprised, sire," she notes. "You are a god, and yet you fear my weapons?" But Hades waves away the notion with an air of arrogance. "Curiosity rules this more than fear, I'd say," he says, noting that Diana's tongue has been sharpened by her witch mother. Finally, Diana stands before the god, clad in only her normal clothes. She motions down to the armor that surrounds her. "Better?" she asks. But Hades shakes his head and motions to the pouch at her feet. "Do you think I can't smell an enchanted pouch? The magic coming off that thing might as well have cartoonish stink lines." "Empty it," he orders. Diana sighs again and reaches for the pouch. Magic escapes the bag as she pulls free every object. Her buster sword clatters to the ground, and she gently lays her 3 lassos next to it. Hades almost smiles at her. "Just what every growing girl needs, I see," he whispers. He looks to one of his minions and orders the creature to bring him the crimson lasso. "I'd advise against that, sire," Diana notes softly. The minion reaches for the lasso, and as its hand touches it, it suddenly bursts into flames and disappears. Diana nods at where the creature once stood. "None may wield the nemesis lasso but me, my liege," Diana explains. Hades finally leans forward and stands from his throne, walking down the steps to stand before Diana. "We would not have crafted such dangerous weapons in such a dangerous place unless we could be certain they would not be misused by others," Diana further explains. Hades stares down at the 3 lassos. "You and your mother have been busy," he notes. Diana smiles again, pointing out that living in a dangerous place forces one to use weapons as a second nature. "Tell me what this nemesis lasso is made from," Hades orders. Diana's smile falters as she thinks of her time on the Isle with her mother. She explains that as a child, Circe would send her on errands for simple weeds and plants. As she grew older, Circe would send her on more dangerous errands for ingredients. "It was only when she sent me to Prometheus that I began to understand the true scope of my mother's vision," Diana says softly. Long ago, lightning cracks in the distance as Diana pulls herself up Mount Prometheus. Rain pelts down on her bare arms as she struggles up the side of the mountain, wishing to remain invisible to the eyes of whatever god might be watching. Finally, she reaches the place where Prometheus is chained, pinned to the side of the mountain and awaiting the punishment that was ever close. Diana stares at the giant god for a moment, before unhooking the great axe from her back. She holds the blade out and slices gently along her arm, casting a spell with her blood and blessing the weapon. Prometheus looks up as the weapon begins to glow, noticing the warrior for the first time. Diana holds the weapon aloft. "I ask your forgiveness, Lord Prometheus," she calls, shouting over the rumbling of nearby thunder. Diana takes a step and heaves the weapon, sending it across the plateau and crashing through the imprisoned god's chains. Prometheus stares at her for a moment before retrieving the weapon and handing it back to her. Diana kneels before him. "Forgiveness for my inadequacy. I confess I have not the power to free you permanently, but I thought a respite might be welcome," she asks. Prometheus smiles down at her. "It is indeed, princess," he rumbles. The two look up as an eagle approaches, prepared to enact Prometheus's punishment. But Diana calls out to the bird. It lands on her arm, and she asks that it take a break from eating at Prometheus. The eagle screeches softly at her, and Diana nods. "Ah, thank you, sister. You will have the thanks and friendship of Diana, witch of the Wild Isle, for all my days." Diana whispers before the eagle leaps and flies away. Once more alone, Diana turns back to the god, who smiles at her. "Circe has been clever. I am happy to see that she's not lost a step since becoming trapped in the underworld. I am even happier to see that her daughter is much the same," Prometheus tells her as he sits and relaxes. But Diana admits that she has come to the mountain for a reason. Prometheus nods. "Well, princess, ask for your boon," he tells her. Diana holds out a vial and kneels before Prometheus, confessing that she needs a vial of his blood so that she and her mother may create a weapon that will only be used in the service of protecting humanity from monsters and even the gods, should it come to that, she whispers. Prometheus ponders for a moment before placing his hand before Diana, ordering her to strike him and cleave a small piece of his finger, so that her weapon might be powered by his flesh and blood. Diana thanks him as she stands and takes up her axe, slicing through the tip of his finger. "Bless this offering of flesh and blood in Hecate's name," she whispers as she picks up the piece and places it in her bag. Next, she holds up the vial and fills it with the draining blood. "May it bring justice to the world, as Prometheus so divines. The blood of Prometheus, god of fire, fire of life. We thank you for your sacrifice," she whispers. But Prometheus is not done. He points to where his blood has spilled. Fire erupts, and a skeletal horse pulls itself from the earth. "Diana, my last gift to you," Prometheus says, introducing her to the reborn Pegasus. "Pegasus, like so many, has been radicalized by injustice. You will make a fine pair," Prometheus tells her. He bids her a fond farewell, wishing her to take leave before his punishment begins anew. Diana nods and mounts Pegasus and flies away. Now, in Hades' throne room, Diana finishes her tale. The god of the underworld nods and looks down at the lasso, noting that he can sense far more power than from just Prometheus. Diana admits that it was also made from the last basilisk. "You killed the last basilisk?" Hades questions, and Diana begins another tale. Zeus was displeased with Circe and Diana, and so had sent the last basilisk to try and kill them many times. But this time, Diana had tracked the creature to its lair. She crept inward, aware that to look into the eyes of a basilisk is death. But Diana had taken precaution, and she had taken her eyesight with magic. The creature looked into her sightless eyes and realized that its gaze would have no power. "Princess," the monster hissed. But Diana was ready and knew of the basilisk's weakness to exploit. In addition to removing her sight, she also removed her sense of smell and threw a magical vial at the basilisk, overwhelming its senses. It roared with pain and prepared to strike, but Diana met its attack and used her weapon to cleave the head from its body. Hades returns to his throne. "The last basilisk," he whispers as he sits heavily. Finally, he leans forward. His eyes smolder once more as he glares at Diana. "This has all been very educational," he says. He waves a hand and something drops out of the darkness from above, dangling in spectral chains. Diana's eyes widen in shock and horror as she looks up at her mother. Circe, her mouth clasped in iron, is trapped in the chains. "Mother?" Diana whispers as tears begin to form in her eyes. Hades leans back on his throne. "Ah, at last. No more smart remarks from that too-sharp tongue of yours," he says. "We all have weaknesses, princess. Yours was quite easy to pinpoint." Long ago, in the bowels of the underworld, Diana ran along the shores of the Wild Isle, chasing after one of her pet monsters. But she stopped short as she rounded the corner to see the queen of the underworld waiting for her. "Lady Persephone," Diana whispers, but the queen merely nods and smiles, motioning the young girl forward. "Hello, Diana. Come meet my tree," she offers. Diana steps forward, surprised to see a tree growing on the Wild Isle. But Persephone explains that she is trapped in hell, and that everywhere she walks, life follows her. She stands and holds out a hand for Diana. But in the underworld, everything dies almost instantly. But sometimes, something very special breaks through. "Come, show me the rest of your home, Diana. Perhaps we can encourage more to grow," Persephone offers. Diana smiles and takes her hand. "I'd like that. Mother always needs more plants," she says. The two turn and begin to walk along the beach. Persephone looks down at the young Amazon and, almost as an afterthought, begins to tell her a tale. "Have you ever heard the story of how I became the queen of the underworld, Diana? It involves a kidnapping and some very diabolical pomegranate seeds," the queen begins. Now, the queen watches as the chimera wraps its paws around Diana's throat. But the warrior twists out of the monster's grasp and hits it hard, knocking it across the arena of the damned. "Quite the fight," Persephone notes. Hades nods his ethereal head as he continues to watch. "Thank you, wife," Hades says absent-mindedly. Before, on the Wild Isle, Circe kneels before their hearth, whispering softly so as not to awaken the sleeping Diana nearby. She bows her head, whispering for an audience with Hecate, the goddess of magic. "Hecate, please answer me. This is for Diana, and I must demand an audience with you. Now," Circe whispers. Suddenly, there's a whoosh of flames, and Hecate's head appears in the fires of the hearth, blazing the room to life. "Speak fast, Circe. I only have seconds," Hecate orders her. Circe nods and explains that she knows what she must do, but she doesn't know how she is supposed to get her young daughter out of hell. "How am I to accomplish this impossible task?" Circe pleads. But the fiery head merely nods knowingly. "There will be 2 escapes. The first is temporary, and you need not concern yourself with. The second is more permanent, but the path has been laid," Hecate explains. Circe doesn't understand, but Hecate can't tell her more. "Ears are everywhere, Circe," she whispers, promising that Hecate saw what Zeus was planning long ago and began a new game. The way has been prepared, Hecate whispers as she explains that she once told Hades a fairy tale that impressed him long ago, before a strong breeze came through the cave, putting out the fire. Circe sighs and looks up. The breeze stirs again and knocks a book from its shelf. She reaches for it and flips it open, revealing the tale, the lady or the tiger. Now, the Chimera takes a deep breath and roars. Flames erupt and bathe Diana, forcing her back long enough for the creature to rush forward and slash the warrior with her claws. The Amazon gasps with pain as blood spills from her wounds. Hades smiles and glances at his other captive. Circe sits beside his throne in chains, her mouth covered, tears falling from her eyes for her daughter's pain. "Care to place a wager, Circe?" Hades says. Before, Circe and Diana lay in their bed, as Circe tells her daughter the tale of the lady or the tiger. Once upon a time, long ago, there was a beautiful princess, Circe began, turning the pages as the tale continued. She told Diana of a princess that fell in love with a handsome young man, but the king refused to allow them to marry, as the man was not a prince, but a poor farmer. He ordered his guards to take the man to the arena, where he would face 2 doors. The king declared that the gods would decide the man's fate. Behind one door was a beautiful woman, and behind the other was a tiger and certain death. Can't he reason with the tiger? Or fight it as a last resort? Diana asks her mother. But Circe smiles and shakes her head. No, Diana, most people can neither communicate with tigers nor fight them and live, she explains quietly. The story continues. The princess was still very much in love with the man and told him that she would signal which door he must take. But the princess learned that the beautiful woman behind the door was someone that she was deeply jealous of, a woman who the young man had once loved, and the princess had long hated. Now, she had to choose the fate of her love. When the time came, the young man looked up at the princess, and she gave a signal. He trusted her completely, and so walked towards the door that she motioned to. And Circe closes the book. The end, she says gently. Diana looks up at her mother in confusion. Wait, what? She asks, unsure of why the story has stopped, pointing out that they don't know what happened. I think that's the point, darling, Circe tells her softly. But this just confuses Diana even more. And over the years, Diana thinks on the story, trying to decipher its meaning and the lesson her mother was trying to impart. Finally, when she is a teen, Diana figures it out. Now, she punches the Chimera once more before whirling and kicking it across the arena. Persephone sighs and glances at her husband. Tell me again, what is the point of the fighting, husband? She asks. Hades shrugs. Well, you know I like a good fight, and sometimes someone loses a limb. Very exciting, he tells her. Diana wipes the blood from her nose as the monster rushes once more. I am sorry, sister. Yield and fight another day, Diana pleads. But the Chimera roars in anger and charges. But Diana grabs a hold of the monster's throat and brings her to the ground. She is beaten, Hades! Do not make me kill her! Diana shouts. But Hades shakes his head. Only one of you may leave the arena, princess, Hades calls. Diana glares at him. If you force me to kill her for nothing more than sport, then you are not the god I thought you might be, and it will draw a fateful line between us, Diana snarls. But she has no choice, and she twists the head of the mighty creature, stopping once the bones snap. Rest easy in your next life, sister. Forgive me, Diana whispers as she lowers the chimera to the ground. She wipes the blood from her wounds and begins to recite a spell. Her eyes start glowing and she rises up from the floor of the arena, magical energy pouring off of her. Hades, you are no god, no lord. You are the warden of a prison, nothing more, Diana calls. Hades stands, his ethereal form pulsing with anger. You dare to speak to me in such a way? The Lord of the Underworld? He shouts. I do. Diana growls. She floats forward, power radiating from her as Hades is forced back. How is she this powerful? He hisses. But she smiles at him, pointing out that her power comes from being unjustly trapped in hell. I believe we have a game to finish. A question of 2 doors? Diana asks. Hades glares at her for a moment before nodding and pointing to the 2 doors in the arena. Pick a door, princess, so I no longer have to look upon your face. Behind one door is certain death. Behind the other, freedom, Hades tells her, before revealing that if Diana should win her freedom, she will never be allowed in the underworld again until her death. He smiles back at Circe. You will lose your daughter forever. Your wild isle will be barren stone once more, for all eternity. He gloats. Diana looks to her mother and sees a tear rolling down her cheek. But Circe motions gently with her head, just like the princess in the story. Diana trusts her mother and flies down to the door, pushing it open to reveal a golden light from within. Thank you for trusting me, mother, Diana whispers, though she turns away from the door and flies back up. What's this? Did I stutter? You've won your freedom, and you may not return, Hades says to her. But Diana shakes her head and steps forward. She picks up her mother's chains and snaps them. About that, it seems some time ago, I had the occasion to eat some pomegranate seeds your wife gave me, Diana says as she frees her mother. Hades glares at his wife. What have you done, Persephone? Hades demands. The queen shrugs, pointing out that she has done nothing but feed Diana one of his treasured seeds, meaning that she must return to the underworld for 1 month for every seed taken. But Diana did this out of love. It wasn't tricked like Persephone was. And so, Diana must return. Unless, of course, would you like to break the rules of the seed? You'll have your win, husband, but you will lose your bride, Persephone says with a smile. Hades looks to Diana and glares at her as his body begins to turn to mist. This is not finished, princess. You've made a grave miscalculation and a motivated enemy, he tells her before disappearing. Later, Diana flies her mother back to the Wild Isle, promising to return. I'll send you a message as soon as I build the Hyron in Gateway City, as we planned, Diana tells Circe. She holds out a hand to her mother. In Hecate's name, fare thee well, mother, Diana tells her as she floats away. In Hecate's name, daughter, Circe whispers. Diana opens her eyes. She is sitting somewhere in the wilds of Gateway City. She smiles at the small animals that have gathered around her. Hello, my darling. Are you next? She asks quietly as she picks up a pigeon. The bird coos gently at her as Diana attaches another message scroll to its leg. She picks up each of the birds in turn and gives each of them a scroll. Please, my friends, search far and wide for my sisters. Bring me news of them. and take my message to them in turn. Go in faith and hope. Hecate protects you and all you love. Diana says to them as the birds take flight and flap away. Diana watches them until they disappear. Thank you, she whispers. Meanwhile, at an undisclosed location in the western United States, Director Veronica Kale has arrived at Area 41, the headquarters of the Global Anti-Terrorism Organization. Kale doesn't bother looking at the security guards as she makes her way through the compound, eventually taking the elevator down to sub-level 7. How's her mood? Kale asks the security technician as she looks down on the glass bubble cell that lays in the room beneath her. The security woman looks up from her control panel. She's, a bit agitated, the woman admits. Kale nods and sighs. That explains the 79 emails I've received from her this morning, Kale notes as she pulls on a gas mask and prepares to enter the cell. Keep your hand on that button while I'm in there, she orders over her shoulder. The technician nods as her hand hovers over the venting button for the cell. Kale prepares herself for a moment before hitting the door release. The doors slide open and she walks up to the glass bubble.
Kale, you unbelievable bitch!
Dr. Poison growls as she turns to look at her visitor. Kale doesn't respond as she sits before the glass cell. Dr. Poison, what on earth can I do to please you today? Kale finally asks. Dr. Poison stalks forward in her heavy suit and bangs on the glass, once again demanding a new suit. For the last time, I have people working on it, Kale tells her, reminding the prisoner that there have been a fair amount of new developments in the last 24 hours. But Poison waves away the notion.
I don't care about your stupid Wonder Woman. I care about a new suit so I can get my fine motor skills here. Do you know how hard it is to do delicate experiments in this World War II relic?
She snaps. But Kale finally smiles a little beneath her gas mask as she holds up a recording device. You're going to change your tune when I play something for you. I'm curious if you'll have a different reaction to it since you're non-corporeal. Dr. Poison suddenly slides out of her suit, revealing that her body is made up of sentient poison gas. Kale taps the play button on the recording, and the poison gas visibly begins to shake, ripples passing through it as if it is somehow in pain. Kale finally hits the stop button, and Poison stares at the recording device in fascination. See what you can do with it. I know it's not your specialty, but you're simply one of my best, Poison. I'll check in at the end of the week, Kale says as she passes the recording through the slot and stands to leave. Poison slides back into her suit and picks up the device, turning away to immediately start working. Her issues with their arrangement are forgotten for the moment as inspiration hits her. Kale heads back up to the security office, staring down at the doctor in her cell as she quickly gets to work. She's requested an exit permit, 2 hours. Fresh soil samples, she says, the tech tells her. Kale stares at the doctor for a moment before nodding. Approved. 2 hours. And she takes an armed guard, Kale orders. Meanwhile, back in Gateway City, Steve Trevor has led Barbara Minerva and the sisters Gia and Etta to Diana's forest home in the middle of the city. Wow, Barbara says as she looks around. She is drawn to a stone in the center of the clearing and slowly reaches out for it. Look at this stone, she whispers. But Diana is suddenly there and takes hold of Barbara's hand. Please don't touch the stone, Barbara. It is untouched by human hands, and I need it to stay that way just a bit longer. You may examine it at your leisure when I finish, Diana tells her. Barbara nods in disappointment. All right, she whispers. Diana thanks them all for coming and takes the ingredients she asked from Gia. This property is worth a couple million easy. They're not just gonna let you have this, Diana, much as they should, Etta notes. But Diana smiles and shakes her head. I think you'll find that I own it already. The land is mine. Though, owning land is admittedly an odd concept to me, Diana tells them. She begins to lay the ingredients out and ushers her friends away. asking them to step outside the clearing while she prepares a spell. Barbara tries to argue that she would like to watch and study, but Steve takes hold of her arm. "Barbara, you'll soon learn to question her less. Trust me," Steve whispers as they step away. Alone once more, Diana looks down at her ingredients. She reaches for her knife and gently cuts her arm, drawing the necessary blood for the needed spell. Her eyes begin to glow as she calls out to the gods, asking for the aid of Hecate, Athena, Artemis, Hestia, Aphrodite, Demeter, and Hera to place her home and to aid her in her quest. The ground begins to rumble beneath her as stone pushes its way to the surface. When Diana opens her eyes again, a new home has formed before her. Moments later, Steve and the others return, shocked to find a full marble building standing before them. "This was absolutely not here 5 minutes ago. This is insane," Barbara whispers, but Steve just nods and smiles. "This is knowing Diana," he tells them. The door opens and Diana steps out, ushering them in with a smile. "Come, I've made tea," she calls. The group sits around and enjoys their tea, but Diana suddenly turns away. "Do you hear that?" she asks as her teacup falls to the floor. Pain and confusion cross her face as she quickly moves towards the exit. "I have to go! You stay here! You'll be safer here!" She gasps before leaping into the air and flying away. Moments later, Diana arrives in Union Square over Gateway City. She looks down in horror as she sees small spiders crawling along the concrete, each one broadcasting a strange variation of the Tetraside's call. "Hecate, give me strength to persevere," Diana whispers before she flies down, slamming into the ground and quickly beginning to attack the small mechanical spiders. She begins to smash them and pull people to safety, but there are too many strange robots. "This is too slow. I need them to come to me. I need to be more of a threat," Diana thinks to herself as she reaches into her pouch and pulls out a glowing potion. She smashes it against the ground and the magic spills out, wrapping around her, engulfing her in a magical flame. The spiders immediately turn to this new threat and skitter forward, crawling over Diana as they broadcast their horrid noise. The sound weakens Diana and she falls to her knees. Her mind is full of pain and confusion, but finally she gathers her strength and she smashes her fists into the ground, destroying large swaths of the robots. She leaps into the air and spins, throwing the creatures off of her. As she gathers herself, she turns and sees the spiders are coming from a nearby construction building. "I hope whoever's up there likes getting punched in the throat," Diana growls as she flies to the building. She lands on the upper floors and easily kicks down the half-finished drywall. "Whoever you are, I hope you're at peace with your creators," Diana bellows as she storms into the room, her eyes glowing with magical fury. But Dr. Poison steps back and holds up her hands in surrender.
"Wait! Don't hit me! My name is Dr. Poison, and you're going to want to hear me out, princess,"
Poison shouts, making Diana stop short.
"I know where you can find an Amazon."
Her eyes widening in shock. Far above Gateway City, Diana grabs Dr. Poison by her suit and hangs her over the edge of the skyscraper. "First things first, Doctor. Turn off your monstrous tetraspiders," Diana orders as the tiny mechanical spiders that broadcast the Tetraside signal stalk behind her. Dr. Poison scrambles to grab hold of Diana's arm and steady herself.
"Bring me in! The controls are inside!"
she stammers. Diana glares at her for a moment. "No games, Doctor. You have seen what I will do to save this city. Do not think yourself special," Diana warns, before tossing her inside. Dr. Poison moves quickly, crawling across the floor to her laptop and and begins to tap commands. Dr. Poison glances over her shoulder at the Amazon.
There's toxic gas in this suit. If you toss me out the window, it's sure to leak out and kill people.
Dr. Poison warns her. Moments later, the spiders all stop in their tracks. The signal ends its broadcast. Diana steps forward as she crushes one of the spiders in her hands. She is confused. Did your government do this to you, Doctor? She asks. Dr. Poison shakes her head.
Not exactly.
But they gave you this sound, didn't they? This poor recording of the Tetraide song? Unconscionable behavior, Diana growls. Dr. Poison reaches down and begins to pack up her laptop, pointing out that Diana is angrier with her government than she was with the giant monster that tried to kill the world. That was an ancient monster from another world doing only what it knew how to do. It was not a clever human harnessing dangerous weapons it doesn't understand, only to use them to purposely hurt fellow citizens, Diana points out. But Diana steps in Dr. Poison's way, stopping her from packing up and ordering her to call all the Tetraspiders back to the skyscraper so that they can destroy them.
I didn't agree to.
Dr. Poison starts to argue, but Diana motions back to the window. Have you forgotten about the window, Doctor? She asks. Poison sighs, turns and sets the laptop back up, and begins to execute the commands. Behind her, Diana kneels and begins to trace sigils into the floor with a glowing potion. Tell me how you know of an Amazon. Tell me about my sister, Diana finally says. Dr. Poison continues to work on the laptop, but explains that in the lowest levels of Area 41, there's an ancient maze.
There are all kinds of things trapped inside,
Dr. Poison says, explaining that some of them were there when the maze was discovered, while others were put there by the government. Some are human, while others are creatures they don't understand. And was my sister someone you put in the maze? Or someone that was already there? Diana asks sharply. Dr. Poison turns back to her, explaining that the Amazon was already there. Now, the spiders have gathered around Diana, and she activates her spell. A portal begins to open on the floor, and the spiders disappear through it.
What have you done? Where are they going?
Dr. Poison asks as she backs away in fear. Diana stands and begins to hover towards the window. To hell. Don't do this again, Doctor. I'll be watching, Diana warns before flying away. Later, she returns to the Hyron and tells her friends everything that she learned from Dr. Poison. It's clearly a trap, Steve warns her. Diana nods as she gathers ingredients for her potions, pointing out that regardless of whether it's a trap or not, she must find this lost Amazon. There is nothing I wouldn't try, nowhere I wouldn't go for the faintest hope of finding a sister, Diana explains. Steve follows her back inside, still worried about the potential dangers of her trip, pointing out that this maze is being used as a prison and that she doesn't even know how to get inside. But Diana has begun to mix her potion. She lifts a vase and pours the red liquid onto the floor. Dipping her hand in it, she begins to trace the outline of a door into the wall, while whispering words of power. Stephen, you know me well enough to know. I make my own doors, Diana tells him as the portal opens. Diana's friends step back in amazement as magic pulses through the room. Diana steps through the portal and it closes behind her. She looks around at the dark and ancient stone maze. An odor of decay reaches her and Diana wrinkles her nose. She holds out her hand and casts another sigil against the wall, creating a golden sign to mark where she entered the maze. Reaching down to her bag, she pulls out a magic torch that finally casts light on the dark tunnels. And so, Diana begins to make her way through the labyrinth. She wanders for a time. The corridors all begin to look the same. But suddenly, the sounds of battle begin to echo off the stones around her. Diana moves quickly down the hallway until she rounds the corner to find a scene of carnage. Strange fish creatures surround a Minotaur, launching attacks against the angry warrior. Diana dons her helmet of war and draws forth the nemesis lasso. She launches herself into the fight, pulling a fishman to safety before whirling and wrapping the lasso around the Minotaur's arm. Diana needs to find clarity in this chaotic situation. She wraps the Minotaur tighter and pulls him down to her level as she searches his soul for the truth of his intention. This will either bring him to his knees or prove his innocence, she thinks to herself. It takes but a moment, but she finds it. Quickly, she steps back and releases the man-bull. Apologies, friend. I don't know what this is, but you have my axe, she tells him. Diana whirls back to the fishmen, lashing out with her lasso to keep them back. Or perhaps the lasso will do, she says as she steps back to back with the Minotaur. What do we fight for, friend? Our lives or something more? Diana questions as the fishmen draw closer. The Minotaur glances at her. They want Petra, he grunts at her. Diana glances to the wall, where she sees a young woman, a siren, nearly dead, but a siren nonetheless. The Minotaur lets out a bellow and rushes into the fishmen, driving them back. Diana joins him, slashing with her lasso and throwing punches. The two warriors push the fishmen back until they start to hesitate to continue their attack. You have had but a taste of the Nemesis lasso, fiends. It cries for your sin. Let it taste more. Come closer, I beg you. Diana calls to them, but the fishmen retreat down the labyrinth. With the battle over, Diana removes her helmet. She turns back to her new friend as he reaches down and retrieves the young siren. We must go. I hear more menfish close by. They'll join together and redouble their attack. The Minotaur grunts. Diana nods and joins them, and the trio move through the darkness of the maze. Thank you for your timely assistance, stranger. I am Ferdinand, the Minotaur tells her, explaining that he's always lived inside the maze, and that he has a place that they can hide. They continue down the hall, and Diana glances at her new friend. I know this is hardly the time for it, but have you seen an Amazon inside the maze? Diana asks him. Ferdinand ponders on it for a moment. Some say Clea is an Amazon, though I have seen no evidence of it other than her strength. She is the monster who has taken control of the maze. The woman who hunts Petra, Ferdinand tells her. The pair round the corner and stop short. The fishmen are kneeling, and a woman walks across their knees. It's not Clea, it's Queen Clea, she tells them, glaring at them both. But then, you have always had a disrespectful tongue, Ferdinand. After I've grown weary of your screams, we'll cut it out, so I never have to think of you again, Clea tells them. Diana stares at the woman and knows one thing for certain. That is no Amazon. Diana stands ready. The maze corridors are tight around her, but she steps in front of the Minotaur Ferdinand and the siren Petra. Diana glances at the seemingly young girl. She is surprised that the siren does not use her song to merely lay waste to their enemies, but realizes that she may be unable to speak. Reaching into her magic pouch, Diana draws her axe and prepares for a fight. Don't let them get around us! Ferdinand rumbles as the fishmen rush forward at the urging of Clea, their queen. Diana meets them, ramming into one and slamming him into the stone walls. Another falls to a slash from her axe, before another is tossed over her shoulder. The Minotaur joins her, using his massive size and strength to bring more fishmen to the ground. But Clea is shouting at her forces, ordering them to bring up a ballista. Prepare to fire, you fools! Clea bellows in anger, but Ferdinand sees the potential attack. He whirls quickly, throwing the fishmen aside, shielding Diana and Petra with his massive frame. The large wooden arrows sail forward as the drawstring is loosened. The projectiles pierce his flesh and bring forth a grunt of pain. Diana moves to help him, but he waves her away. Go, protect Petra. Get out if you can. Ferdinand rumbles softly. Diana nods and puts a hand to his shoulder. Do not give up, my friend. I will be back for you. Have faith. You have the promise of Diana, Witch of the Wild Isle. Diana whispers. She whirls quickly and lifts Petra into her arms before rushing off into the maze. The fishmen rush forward, pushing Ferdinand's weakened body to the floor. Bind him for travel, but bring me the siren now! I have waited long enough, and we'll deal with this strange interloper as we do all unwanted things, Clea says as she steps forward. But the fishmen turn to her in fear. Your Majesty, they're gone, one of them tells her. Anger flashes across Clea's face as her eyes widen. Find them and bring them to me! Kill the interloper, but I need the siren alive! Clea bellows in anger, her words echoing along the labyrinth's corridors. But Diana is already rushing away, Petra tucked in her arms. Before, on the wild isle of Hell, the test is about to begin. Circe prepares her young daughter for battle, tightening the buckles on Diana's armor and helmet as the young Amazon takes her battle axe from the friendly demons that wander the house. Circe takes one last look at her daughter before pulling her into a hug. Trust in yourself above all things, Diana, and all will be well, Circe whispers. But Diana smiles and heads towards the door. Don't worry, Mama. I'm not afraid of gods, Diana says over her shoulder. Darkness has fallen over the wild isle as Diana steps outside. A fog rolled in from the ocean that surrounds them. Hello? I am Diana of the Wild Isle. Welcome to my home, Diana calls. Suddenly, the fog parts and out steps a massive black panther, its face covered in blood. Hello, princess, the Black Panther says as it begins to circle the young girl. We do not have much, but what we have is yours, Diana explains. But the panther circles her and proclaims that it will take all. It opens its massive jaws, and it moves towards Diana suddenly. But the young Amazon does not move. Defend yourself, princess! The panther demands, but Diana shakes her head. I will not fight you for no reason, she explains simply. The panther continues to circle, explaining that it will rend her flesh, crack her bones. I accept it. I can bear it, Diana tells it. Because you are weak, the panther says as it bites down on Diana's arm, forcing her to drop her axe. Now will you fight? It asks. But Diana shakes her head. The panther growls softly at this defiance. Suddenly, it turns. A turtle has pulled itself from the waters and wandered onto the shore. The panther moves quickly, charging forward as its jaws open wide. But suddenly, Diana's axe falls in the panther's way, protecting the sea creature. He did nothing to you. Leave him be, Diana snaps defiantly. The panther turns and smiles at her. Ah, there you are, wild one. I knew I could find you, it tells her. Diana's hand begins to glow with the magic as the panther reaches out and pins the turtle to the ground with its massive paw. That creature is under my protection. You may not harm him, Diana growls. She leaps forward, slamming into the panther, hitting it again and again. She swings her axe, drawing blood from the beast. But the panther is not deterred and charges at the young warrior. Later, the door to their home swings open. Circe looks up, but finds no one standing in the entryway. "Diana?" she calls as she heads outside. The fog begins to swirl and lift, revealing the young girl unconscious on the rocks. "Diana, can you hear me?" Circe asks as she lifts the young girl. Diana stirs and smiles at her, the turtle clutched in her arms. Safe. "You'd be proud, Mama. I did good. This is Nico," Diana whispers. Once inside their cave, Circe takes care of her daughter. Tears spill from her eyes as she prays to Hecate by the fire, asking the goddess to spare Diana from the pain of her future. The smoke swirls around the room, solidifying and becoming an image of the goddess. "Please, Hecate, she's just a child," Circe prays. But Hecate drifts forward. "Everything we do is to fashion her into a weapon," Hecate reminds Circe, a smoke hand reaching out, gently stroking Diana's hair. "We love the child as we love few things, but do not be confused by the reason for her existence," Hecate says, explaining that Diana was created to be thrown into a system that must be destroyed. But Circe stares down at the sleeping child. "If you were trying to make a weapon, why also make her a kind little girl? It's unfathomably cruel," Circe whispers. Hecate swirls around the room, explaining that Diana is a little girl so that others will be dismissive of her, and she will be unseen. She is kind because monsters do not understand kindness, but also she is simply herself. I don't know that any of us could have imagined her this way, this pure, this compassionate, this full of love," Hecate whispers. "They will never understand her, and that is an advantage. Have faith and hope, Circe. We are only at the beginning," Hecate whispers before she drifts away with the smoke on the wind. Now, Diana is drawing close to the mark she left on the wall. "It's not far, Petra. Hold fast. I'm getting you out," Diana whispers. She arrives at the place she left the door and, using her magic, opens it. "Petra, I give you my word. I will not leave here without Ferdinand. May the goddesses protect you," Diana says as she kneels before the young siren and motions her through the door. Petra steps through to the Hyron and collapses to the floor. Steve and the others turn in shock at the young woman, standing over her and pondering her blue skin. "Barbara, does she look dry to you?" Steve asks. "Then get her some water, Steve," Etta whispers quietly. Meanwhile, Diana has begun to move back through the maze, searching for her lost friend, but something is different. Strange flowers have begun to grow. Their perfumes swirl through the air. Before she realizes what is happening, she has breathed the flower's scent deeply. The world begins to shift around her. The walls become almost liquid. Something is moving behind her, and Diana turns to see swirling monsters. Their skin seems to drift and drip. "By Hecate, what kind of monsters are you?" Diana whispers. She turns to run. The walls are drifting as liquid around her, the scent making her confused. She even forgets why she is running. Finally, she comes to a stop in a vast chamber. "Well, that worked rather nicely. Seeing you now, I see the truth of you. An Amazon, quite rare, and a prime candidate for the pit," Clea calls from her throne. But Diana isn't going down without a fight. "Oh, no you don't, men-fish," Diana says lazily as the fishmen begin to surge towards her like a wave. Clea's laughter seems to bubble around the room. "They prefer fishmen, actually," she calls. Diana whirls among the bubbly fishmen, throwing punches into them. "I'll make note," Diana shouts, her own voice rising and falling like a wave. Finally, Clea waves her hands in annoyance, and Diana notices someone else in the chamber. "It's honestly amazing I was able to conquer anything with these minions. Toss in the scientist. The Amazon will go in on her own free will to protect him," Clea calls. The fishmen move quickly, tossing the shouting human into the pit. Diana doesn't hesitate and leaps over the edge, diving downward and catching the stranger before they can hit the bottom. She lowers him to the ground and realizes that the entire chamber is full of the strange flowers that are affecting her mind. "Try not to disturb the flowers too much. We'll go mad," the doctor whispers. But Diana can't help it. The perfume fills the air, making her mind even more loose and floaty than before. Diana reaches for her pouch, trying to get a potion that will help her see. Suddenly, Diana can hear something coming. She turns, trying to focus as the chamber melts around her. But something is coming for her. Something big that carries a hammer and looks almost made of fire. "Who are you?" Diana whispers. The creature says something, but its words are lost to the madness that quickly creeps over Diana. Deep within Area 41, in the ancient maze that was discovered, Diana fights for her life in the pit that Clea has tossed her into. But her mind is warped. The flowers around them have altered her sense of reality, and she swings her great axe at the fiery warrior that stands before her. The blade swishes through the air, and Diana stumbles. This is madness, she thinks. Finally, she drops the axe to the ground, refusing to fight blindly and possibly kill someone she shouldn't. She holds up a hand to the fiery warrior and speaks, but her words come out as gibberish to her own ears, and she can't process what she is trying to say. But she thinks her words sound slurred and garbled, but maybe her words are fine, and it's only her perception of them that has changed. She whispers the magic words into the potion. Light suddenly fills the room, and the glowing flowers around them suddenly darken. Diana's eyes roll up into the back of her head, and she tumbles to the ground, exhausted. No longer made of fire, the warrior leans down over the fallen Diana to study her. She glances up at the scientist that Diana rescued. "Can you understand me, science man?" the warrior asks. He nods in fear, but the warrior smiles. "Go with care to the opening. I'll meet you there. And throw a few painful screams up the hole if you don't mind," she asks. He looks at her in shock, but goes to the pit opening. "Ah! No! Please!" He screams up for Clea. He then walks over to the opening and turns to the warrior. "What are you going to do with us?" he gasps. She reaches down and picks up Diana softly. "What I always do," the warrior whispers. Carrying Diana, the warrior quickly leads the scientist to safety, allowing Clea above to believe that they had been murdered. Diana opens her eyes briefly as they retreat and sees something shimmering in the flower chamber. "I see you," she whispers before passing out. Long ago, on the wild Isle of Hell, Diana sits with a great wolf. Diana looks up at the goddess. "Goddess, will you always be angry with me?" Diana asks. The wolf looks at her in surprise. Angry? Princess, you delight me, but you also confound me, the goddess whispers, explaining that her disciples seek her out. They understand each other, but she does not understand Diana, and that is good. You are clever in a way that I am not. You are kind and compassionate in a way I do not understand. You are creative and patient. You are the best of all of us. The world is lucky for this, the goddess explains. She motions to the rock that Diana holds. Now, take your stone and use your magic on it. Make the Hydra love the stone. Seek it out, the goddess orders. Diana whispers a spell, and the stone begins to glow. Now, throw it into the water, the goddess tells her. Diana tosses the stone into the water and watches its light sink into the inky darkness. Now, bring it back to me. No magic. Remember what we said about choosing the right weapons. It can be everything, the goddess orders. Diana nods her head and reaches for her axe before disappearing beneath the waves. The goddess watches as the sun rises over the horizon. Eventually, Diana reappears, her weapon gone, with the glowing stone in her hands. She places it gently before the wolf goddess. Well done, princess, the goddess whispers. With her task complete, Diana picks up the stone and turns back to the water, walking gently into the waves. The goddess cocks her head to the side. Where are you going? She asks. The Hydra and I, we made a bargain. I let her keep my axe until I bring the stone back to her. You said choose the right weapon. The right weapon was bargain. Diana calls before disappearing. The wolf shakes her head in wonder. Confounding child, she whispers. Meanwhile, beneath the maze, Diana awakens to find the scientist and the warrior leaning over her. She sits up gently. I am Diana of Themyscira, last of the Amazons, she explains as an introduction. The warrior, an Amazon, stares at her in wonder. Diana of Themyscira? How can that be? I am Io, and you are the daughter our Queen Hippolyta dreamed of, the sister we all dreamed of. A miracle, Io says as she bows to the princess. But Diana helps her to her feet and embraces her in a hug. The miracle is you, sister. I have dreamed of meeting a sister since I was a child, Diana whispers. Io pulls back in surprise, unsure of why Diana has never met an Amazon. It is a long story, sister, and there is little time for that in this cursed maze. But not long after birth, I was taken from the Amazons and raised in the underworld by the sorceress Circe, with a little help from the goddesses, Diana says. Circe? I have missed much, it seems, Io says in shock. She explains that she fell on an ancient battlefield. Instead of dying, she awoke in this maze, eventually finding her way to the lower level and tattooing the map on her skin as she went. She leads Diana through the chambers, introducing her to the crowds of people that have either found their way down here or been cast down by Clea and her army. Have you tried to free yourselves? Diana questions as she meets the people who are merely trying to live their lives in this place of darkness. Io nods and leads her to the tunnels, showing her the places where they've tried to find some way out of the maze, including the passageway that leads to the upper levels. Diana nods. I have an exit, but getting all of us to the exit without Clea picking us off is going to be the tricky part, Diana tells her. Eventually, Io leads her back to the flower chamber. There, Diana explains her plan, telling Io that she will distract Clea and her forces, while also rescuing and healing Ferdinand. Diana points to a place on Io's tattoo, explaining that while Clea is distracted, Io needs to bring the survivors in her camp to this place and use the magical exit to escape the maze. She hands Io a small bauble with a potion in it, explaining that it is a key to open the door to her home in Gateway City. Finally, the two hug and Io turns away to return to her followers. Hera love and protect you, Io. If we do not meet again, please tell Hippolyta and my sisters I love them and will never stop searching for them, Diana calls. In moments, she is alone in the chamber. The flowers shift slightly, a sickly sweet scent filling the air. I know you are here. Reveal yourself so that together we may escape this cursed place, Diana calls. The mysterious entity appears, shimmering through the air. Its body is moving like water. I am incomplete and cannot aid you, the creature whispers. And if I complete you, Diana questions, then we might have something, Diana of the Wild Isle. Do you know the truth of me? The entity asks. Diana nods. I believe I do. Pay attention. This will happen fast, Diana tells it. She suddenly leaps into the air, propelling herself out of the pit and back up into Clea's chamber. Clea and her forces are shocked. Kill her! Clea demands, but Diana is already moving, throwing a potion that explodes against Ferdinand, quickly healing the Minotaur and allowing him to break free of his chains. Thank you, Diana. I feel strong, he bellows as he rushes at the fish people. Diana turns back to Clea, who has leaped forward and slashed at the Amazon with her staff. But Diana blocks the blade, noting the strange watery jewel on the tip of the staff. Clea, you are a match for many things in this maze, but I am not one of them, Diana calls. But Clea knocks her away, slamming her into a wall. She rushes forward and stabs Diana through the stomach. Where is my siren? Clea bellows in anger. Meanwhile, at the Hyron, Steve slowly lowers Petra into the quiet lake within the garden. She immediately comes to life, but the group is shocked by the change in her face, showing a more monstrous appearance. Back down in the maze, Clea steps away from Diana in triumph. But the Amazon isn't beaten yet. She reaches down and pulls the staff from her stomach and holds it aloft. Despite your behavior, I have something great to offer you, if you will only hear me out, Diana says as she staggers to the edge of the pit. But first, Clea's eyes widen in shock as Diana throws the staff over the edge. Clea rushes to the side of the pit and stares down in horror. It's okay. It's fine. It's just in the pit. I can send in some of the boys. I can get it back. I can get it back, she whispers to herself. Diana glances at her and holds out her hand. Oh, Clea, you're getting it back. Just not as you imagined, Diana tells her. Suddenly, the entity flies out of the pit and comes to her waiting hand. Diana turns to the ruler of the maze and holds her new weapon aloft. The Trident of Poseidon, made full once more. Diana whirls the Trident of Poseidon in her hand. The watery staff lashes out and knocks the fishmen away. But the weapon has a mind of its own and flows from her hand, slamming into the fishmen before returning to her in a wave. The trident is sentient, and Diana can feel it in her mind. The trident tells her that Clea is actually Atlantean, and Diana wonders if this is what drove the woman mad. She has been trapped in the maze for some time, far away from the ocean that she once called home, and in the proximity of a tool of the gods. Diana turns to find Ferdinand continuing the fight. The fishmen threaten to overwhelm him. Be many, she whispers to the trident and sends it sailing forth. The blade splits into numerous spouts and slams into the fishmen again, saving the Minotaur. Diana turns back just as Clea assaults her, punching Diana hard in the face before bringing her knee up and driving it into Diana's stomach. You took my siren! You destroyed my staff! And now you claim my trident of Poseidon? Clea snarls as Diana falls to the floor, but the Amazon shakes her head and looks up. None of those things belong to you, Clea, and that, not me, is why you could not possess them. Diana snaps at her. She reaches down and picks up a stone among the rubble. Find Io. When Io exits the maze, seal it behind her, Diana whispers to the stone before casting a spell on it. She twists away from Clea and tosses the stone into a nearby passageway. Ferdinand! Follow this stone to my sister Io. She should take it with her when she exits, Diana shouts. The Minotaur hesitates for a moment, unhappy with the idea of leaving Diana to fight by herself. But Diana smiles at him. I am not alone. Look at all these menfish, she shouts as the warriors close in on her. We will meet again, she promises. Ferdinand hesitates for a moment longer before nodding and disappearing into the tunnel. The fishmen grab Diana by her arms and hold her down, but she lashes out with her legs and kicks them away. But Clea is behind her now, slamming an elbow into the back of Diana's head and knocking her to the ground. Give me control of the trident, she bellows as she tries to kick Diana in the face. But the Amazon grabs her foot, stopping the blow. That demand nicely sums up why you fail. Diana snaps as she twists and throws Clea into the air. Diana holds out her hand and the trident returns to her before bursting out into rippling waves that push all of the fishmen back. But Clea resists the attack and grabs hold of Diana. Meanwhile, Ferdinand has arrived at the portal that leads out of the maze. Io stands to greet him. The Minotaur reaches down for the glowing stone and informs her that Diana said to take this out of the maze and it will seal it behind them. But she is not coming? Io asks. The Minotaur shakes his head. She seemed to have a different plan in mind for herself, he explains. Io is unsure of this, but she finally nods and motions to Ferdinand to step through the portal. The Minotaur hesitates for a moment, unsure of what life will be like outside of the maze. But Io comforts him and he steps through. But immediately he clutches his head in pain at the sound of the siren's song, and he begins to struggle as his legs grow shaky. Petra, he whispers. He pushes through the Hyron, past all the collapsed bodies, until he arrives at the pool. The siren Petra is singing as tears fall from her eyes. Diana's friends nearby, clutching their ears to try and prevent the sound from piercing their mind. But Ferdinand pushes through the pain, stepping into the pool and swimming out to his friend. Petra! Petra, please! Petra! I'm here! It's okay. He whispers as he pulls her into a hug. The siren's monstrous form disappears, and the young girl looks up at him. It's okay. We're free now, and it's all going to be okay. Ferdinand whispers as her song stops. Back in the maze, Clea slams Diana into the ground again before wrapping her hands around the Amazon's throat. Everything was fine until you got here, Clea bellows in rage. Diana shifts and elbows her in the face, driving her away. Was it though? You're trapped in a prison, cut off from your natural habitat, your homeland, and eating your own menfish, Diana reminds her. She motions to the pit, where the seawater has already begun to fill up and spill into the upper chambers. Clea's eyes widen in shock. Water? How did you? She questions. The water begins to fill the chamber and the fishmen cry out with joy and begin to splash around. Not just water, Clea. The Pacific Ocean, Diana tells her, explaining that she has flooded the maze. I simply made a hole. Poseidon's trident was a useful ally in this effort. Diana informs her. Clea stares at her in disbelief. There's an opening in the maze? She whispers. The fishmen continue to splash around them. All thoughts of battle have disappeared from their minds. There is. You can follow me to your freedom, Diana tells her. Clea falls to her knees. And what then? She questions. Diana looks at her thoughtfully, explaining that she can return to her home and her people. You were a monster in this maze, but are you a monster outside of it? I'm willing to take the chance and find out, Diana tells her. But you will find me less accommodating if I see you are still a monster when given your freedom, Clea. The choice is yours, she says as she leaps into the water and begins to swim down deep into the maze, aided by the glow and power of Poseidon's trident. Clea and her fishmen gather at the edge of the pool for a moment, before all leaping into the waters and following the princess. Meanwhile, Io can wait no longer. Seawater has begun to flood all the passages of the maze, and finally, she has no choice but to leave. Diana, I hope you know what you're doing. Hera protect you, Io whispers as she turns into the portal and steps through. But as she enters the Hieron, there is a bolt of lightning, and she suddenly disappears. The others stare in shock. Later, Diana rises above the waters in Gateway City Harbor. The people on the beach cheer for her, but Diana is distracted as she watches Clea and her warriors swim farther out to sea. Be good, Clea. Hera guide you to a better path, she whispers. Shortly, she returns to the Hieron to find all of the refugees. Where is my sister? Where's Io? She asks her friends. Steve and Edda step forward and explain what happened. No, Diana whispers, before falling to her knees at the smoking spot where Io once stood. Hecate, if I have ever pleased you, even once, show me a sign that she still lives, Diana prays. Her friends gather and watch sadly, but they are shocked when a dove suddenly flies over and drops an olive branch into Diana's hands. Well, that's quite biblical, Barbara whispers. Elsewhere, a bolt of lightning appears, and Io suddenly finds herself standing in a temple. She falls to her knees weakly, but looks up when someone calls her name. By Hera! Io! Queen Hippolyta gasps. Io's eyes widen, and she bows before her queen. But Hippolyta reaches down and helps her sister up. We feared we had lost you forever, Io, Hippolyta whispers. Io shakes her head and quickly explains that she was trapped in a maze, but she was saved by the princess. I've seen Diana. She's alive, Io whispers. Hippolyta quickly stands and rushes to the temple's balcony, shouting out to the Amazons below. Ring the bells! She's alive! Diana lives! She shouts. Far below, the bells of Themyscira ring, and the Amazons cheer for their lost princess. Meanwhile, in the black site at Area 41, Kale sits across from Dr. Poison, unhappy with the destruction of the maze and Poison's role in it. The maze and the entire lower levels have been lost to us, including all assets trapped inside, Kale snaps, threatening to have Dr. Poison sucked up into the air vents. But the doctor shakes her head, reminding Kale that she needs her.
And I want a new damn suit!
Dr. Poison hisses. Kale leans back and stares at her for a moment, before finally standing and leaving the room. Outside, she orders the technician to finally get Dr. Poison the new suit, but get her the Gen 1 suit. I'm moving her to Project SS1, Kale says harshly to the technician's surprise. Kale turns and strides away, heading through Project SS1 on her way out. passing all the strange creatures they have locked away there, before finally coming to a woman in restraints with her mouth sealed. It looks like you're finally going outside, Zatanna, because I'm going to send you to kill a witch, Kale orders. And that was Absolute Wonder Woman, issues 6 through 12 by Kelly Thompson. Technically, this was 2 arcs, The Lady or the Tiger and As My Mother's Made Me. I chose to put them together because the first arc was only 2 issues, and I felt like it didn't fit the normal full story length. So, what did you think about this double feature full story? Let me know in the comments below, and like and subscribe to help us out in that YouTube algorithm. I'm Dan with Comicstorian, and we will see you next time. Rest in peace, Benny.